Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Hymans.
Thank you. Somebody's howling. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Well, first of all, I've always found that the first people to show up at events are very often the last people to leave. And you're the best. You're the best. Whatever your qualifications are, you're showing stamina and interest and so on. And I was given permission by Judith to wing it, and she trusts that I'll hit the ball out of the park. So that's good news. The potential bad news is it might go out foul. So that'll be up to you. So the first thing I really want to say is thank you. Thank you for your activism, and thank you for caring about this. When I talk to people about the assassinations and chemtrails and things that I have an interest in, I often get this, you're wearing a tinfoil hat. And I'm actually going to look into producing a very high quality hat that looks like tinfoil, so we can all wear them proudly. I went to a chemtrails conference one time, and the guy started out, he actually mentioned the JFK assassination, and he said, conspiracy theorist is really nothing more than a lie detector. So I wear that proudly. And our founding fathers warned us over and over and over again that we should hold government accountable, we should hold them to a suspicion, and that's our duty. And we've been trained over time to think that we should be ashamed if we ask pointed questions or try to hold people accountable. And there's a battle going on right now. While I'm talking about battle, in my life, I do, and I'm just one of you, so, you know, I'm honored to have this microphone, and sometimes I wonder how I got it, but I think that all of us have the potential to do great things. As for Bobby Kennedy, I was a college student at Whittier in Southern California, and yeah, that's where Nixon went to school. And my parents gave me a Brownie camera when I was 7 years old, 1974. Yeah, I'm 72 and a half. It's unbelievable how fast time goes. And so when I got to Whittier College, I'd taken some pictures and stuff, and I went up to the head photographer and I said, hey, I want to be a photographer. And she reached into her purse and she gave me a key to the darkroom. She said, here you go, you are. And in a very small college, I had a chance to be a very big fish in a small pond, knowing almost nothing. I spent day and night in there. And I shot pictures for the yearbook, I shot pictures for the newspaper, I did passport photos. I mean, I'm very manic. I call myself a manic neutral. I don't usually get depressed because I'm always too busy chasing some kind of a Jones. And by the way, this may sound like it's about me, but it's about all of us. It's about children, it's about our grandchildren, and the potential that they have if they get opportunities. So it was June of 1968, and the editors of the newspaper said, come on, we're going to go downtown, Bobby Kennedy's campaigning. So we drove down to Pico Rivera or La Habra, I don't remember which, and waited. And ironically, I went up on top of a building to see about taking a picture from there. And then I said, to heck with it, I'm going to go down where the action is. So I was on the street, and I was no further away than this gorgeous woman was from me. And his convertible went by, and he was standing up shaking hands with people on the other side. Well, I had 2 evening newspaper routes, and I'm a good salesman. So when I saw that, I said, hey, Senator, I'm on this side. So he turned around, and he looked at me, and I said, I'm on your campaign team at Whittier College. And he looked me in the eye, and it went straight to my heart. That man had a big heart. He was tough as nails, but he had a huge heart. He looked me in the eye, and he said, thank you. I need all the help I can get. We shook hands, and I took about 3 pictures of him with black and white Tri-X film. And I have that picture to this day. 3 days later, my girlfriend came over, and we were having a lot of fun on the couch, and she needed to go home. I had a larger sense of urgency than she did. And so I took myself into the TV room and switched on the TV, and Bobby Kennedy had just been shot. And I hadn't seen her since then. And December 15th last year, we met, and we are now sharing an apartment with great hopes for a long future. But we were told that Bobby was killed by a lone assassin. And I said, hey, wait a minute. I was born at night, but not last night. Not another lone assassin. And so that was the start of my quest with the JFK assassination and the Bobby Kennedy assassination. And I accumulated a lot of books, and I learned a long time ago that when I think I really know everything about a subject, go back to my first book and see what I forgot. So I went back to Thomas Buchanan's book called Who Killed Kennedy, and I realized how much I had forgotten. At any rate, that fueled my activism for quite some time. And then I met a woman who was working as a registrar at a culinary academy, and very, very, very bright woman. And she is now working for a law firm in Sacramento that is trying cases against the Pacific Gas and Electric Company for the fires called the Camp Fire up in Paradise. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. is working there. And I got a chance to meet him at a couple of events that they had soliciting clients. And I also met him in Sacramento when he was introducing the movie Trace Amounts. I think that's the name of the film. Is that correct, anybody? Yeah, okay. And he's a very, very committed person. And I had talked to him about, in concert with Judith, about coming to last year's event. And he wasn't able to make it, and he wasn't able to make it to this year either. He's busy prosecuting those lawsuits. And he's also working on glyphosate, Roundup. And the people he's affiliated with have gotten massive, hundreds of millions of dollars of judgments in favor of the plaintiffs with regard to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So right now, Bayer Company, that's been culpable for the commercializing of heroin and a couple of other nefarious things, they bought Monsanto, and the ship is filling up with water. So that's about it with the Kennedys. I believe I will see Robert Kennedy Jr. again, and I believe that now that Mr. Caesar, Thane Eugene Caesar, is that the name? Now that he has ostensibly died, Bobby Jr. feels comfortable in saying that he believes that man killed his father. So I think he's going to be aligning himself more with good people like us who want to know the truth. And let's see. Now about the truth. I would be one of the first people that want to crawl up to the 6th floor of the book depository with some kind of a new test and see if I can find some Malcolm Wallace DNA. But the truth is, in my heart, I believe that all of us, certainly I am in this to try to restore the context and the spirit and the mentality that those of us who are alive when John Kennedy was alive knew. I worked at my dad's furniture store, assembling furniture and stuff, and John Kennedy stimulated America to get fit. And I remember seeing hundreds, not thousands of people walking by the store on their 50-mile hikes. And the arts, interior decoration, wardrobe, poetry, music, many, many things became popular under John Kennedy's administration, and there was a feeling to that. I was too young to understand politics, but I understood the context and the trajectory of where America was going. So I just want to encourage you to join me in realizing that we are being programmed by the mockingbird to be polarized, to be diametrically opposed. You're going to be a Republican or you're going to be a Democrat. You're going to be liberal or you're going to be conservative. You're going to be black, you're going to be white, whatever. But as long as there are opposing opposites, people will never get along. And I realized that the 95% of the world lives in the middle somewhere. And we don't have to get angry about any differing opinion. And we don't have to have an opinion on every subject. It's okay to say, tell me about that. I don't hate, I'm unwilling to hate any person. I hate what they do. but almost anybody on the planet I'm willing to forgive. So that's a context I'd like to just bring up, let you know that's what I have. And so if you want to get mad at me, watch me change it to something like, hey, that's a nice sweater you got on. Where'd you get that? All right. So we're going to move on. And one of the great things that has come out of my becoming the photographer here is that there was a field trip. And several of us, Judith and I, representing this group, went to UCLA last April, where Chris Milligan had a stand to sell books at the book fair. The Los Angeles Times put on the book fair. So we were there, and John Barber was there, and a couple of other people were there. So I just want to show a couple of quick slides to let you see what we experienced. And that was a chance to see humanity, you know, and sea is a pun there, because it is a sea, and we're all flowing in that sea. I was just reminded of something, and I'll let that shiny thing pass. Maybe it'll come back. So there is the first slide, and how do I move to the next? I know the right arrow. I'm a Mac guy myself. Okay, well, there's Chris Fulton, and in the back, in the center, the fellow bending over with the leather patch on his sweater, that is Sean Stone. And he was there, and the dark-haired woman who's not facing us is his girlfriend, and the woman with the vest on is Oliver Stone's ex-wife, Sean's mom. And that was really great to see them there. And there's our good friend Chris Milligan. And every time I meet that man, I have a higher degree of respect and amazement at his knowledge, his stamina, his sense of humor, his patience, his love for humanity. He's really a remarkable human who has had a lot of life experiences, and grateful to be working with him. And there's Kris with his daughter Julia. She came down to help out at the booth. She handles the bookkeeping and stuff, and she does a marvelous good job. And there's a creatively done photo of Chris and Sean Stone. And there's the former Mrs. Stone and Chris's girlfriend. I'll really quickly tell you one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to me at this event. I was talking to Mrs. Stone. I don't know her present last name, and I didn't really know much about her. And I've got good lenses for my camera, and she noticed, and she said, "Oh, I like your lens on your camera." And I said, "Oh, you obviously recognize quality. Have you done some commercial photography?" And she said, "I shot all of my husband's films." So I felt like a little kid trying to tell Willie Mays how to hold a baseball bat. And she saw the embarrassment on my face, and it was like, you didn't hear that, did you? Please forgive me. And her eye contact said, "Yeah, I saw that. I do forgive you. There's really nothing to forgive." So sometimes you can really step on it or put your foot in it or whatever. Okay, then here's Mr. Fulton signing an autograph in a book. He's quite a remarkable person, and the surprise I have for you is that we did a 20-minute interview with him, actually 2 10-minute interviews at the Mayfair Hotel, and he is every bit as nice as he appears, or he's the best actor I've ever seen, but I don't think so. He's a really, really nice man, and you'll see that in the video. And there's his family, his gorgeous wife, 2 beautiful children, and Grandma. Grandma's from England, and she has a beautiful British accent, and it was really, really great to meet them. And there I am with John Barber. John loves golf. He plays golf almost every day, and he said, "I'm going to go hit some golf balls. You want to go with me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm having trouble with my drive." And in 20 minutes, he improved my golf swing by a lot. Love John Barber. If you don't know him or know of him, he produced a really excellent movie. It's called The American Media and the Second Assassination of President John Kennedy. You can get it for $5 on Amazon, and it'll blow your mind. Really will. All right. And there's Kris again. John Barber. And there's Judith with Kris. Having a very good discussion, just like the one that, well, not quite as high level, but like the one that happened yesterday with Oliver Stone. I don't know if all of you are aware of it, but yesterday Oliver Stone showed up, the man who made the original JFK film, which caused, really, it was the seed crystal for the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And he risks a lot in his career to produce that film, and he's up to something else. And the fact that he spent that much time here yesterday, the fact that he came up with his arm around our Judith can only be foreboding of good news. And here's a picture of Kris that I took at the Mayfair Hotel. Can I get your help getting the first interview up, please?
How long is the video?
We got two 10-minute ones.
We don't have 20 minutes. We have a hard end at 3:45. We've got to be out there, so we only have time for one maybe.
Okay, then let's go for the second one. Okay, so let me just say quickly, we had a very nice interview with him. He talked about aspects of his book. Come on, brain. The Inheritance. And, yeah?
Where did we get all the pictures that you take? Where can we get them?
I don't know. Talk to me afterwards, okay? Because I wasn't prepared for that question, and Don's going to put the 5-minute sign up pretty quick.
First or second?
Pardon? Huh?
First or second one?
Second one. Okay, not yet. Okay, so we had a really nice interview. He talked about his book and some of the history of it, some of the details. And then we thought the interview was over, and then he and Judith started talking, and it was about the heart stuff, the reason that I'm in this and the reason that many of us are in it. And I said, wait a minute. Let me get my camera back on the tripod. We're going to film this. And here we go. I think.
To protect them and to make sure they did not get destroyed and so on. That was a serious responsibility.
It was moving, we just didn't have any sound yet. Well, it's not running yet. Go.
Now, Christopher, you mentioned that these tapes, you sacrificed a great deal to protect them and to make sure they did not get destroyed and so on. That was a serious responsibility. What were those tapes about?
Well, the tapes were records, so the President Kennedy had an accurate response to what he was trying to do and could show the intent.
Now, Christopher, you mentioned that these tapes, you sacrificed a great deal to protect them and to make sure they did not get destroyed and so on. That was a serious responsibility. What were those tapes about?
Well, the tapes were to keep everybody on record, so that President Kennedy had an accurate response to what he was trying to do and could show the intent of what he was so desperate to accomplish. And he was battling the infrastructure, which was the Pentagon and the intelligence services, directly and indirectly on many different levels. President Kennedy had said on the recordings in 1964, I'm going to be the least popular president in U.S. history with my own government. Now, what he meant by that was that he was going to stop Vietnam. He was not going to allow them to have that war. He was going to pull out the CIA personnel out of Vietnam, which he also mentioned on the recordings, that he discussed this with generals. There were plans in place to do that. And obviously, he wasn't going to follow this plan. Within 9 days of his assassination in Texas, he was going to have a free democratic elected Cuba, one way or the other. He was going to resolve these. He was having secret talks with Castro, not through the intelligence community, but through people that he trusted. This was in the press corps and other people that he felt a rapport with, that he could go on one-on-one directly to these individuals and get this information across. He realized very quickly that the infighting with the CIA that he had wasn't going to do his orders. They were circumventing him on every turn. And I heard the recordings between President Kennedy and John McCone. Now, John McCone was the director of the CIA that they used to replace Mr. Dulles. Dulles was still operating out of Georgetown, still had very much a control of the Central Intelligence Agency. I've heard the recordings with Mr. Dulles trying to convince President Kennedy that he was in control of the agency, and what they had coming into the office under the.
That wasn't an event. That was taken in a record listening.
operating on its own will, its own merit, and President Kennedy was someone they looked at as someone who was coming into the office and would be gone. These were life people that had bigger and more important agendas to deal with than what President Kennedy had to say.
So when now, Christopher, you mentioned that these tapes, you sacrificed a great deal to protect them and to make sure they did not get destroyed and so on. That was a serious responsibility. What were those tapes about?
Well, the tapes were to keep everybody on record so that President Kennedy had an accurate response to what he was trying to do and could show the intent of what he was so desperate to accomplish. And he was battling the infrastructure, which was the Pentagon and the intelligence service, directly and indirectly on many different levels. President Kennedy had said on the recordings in 1964, I'm going to be the least popular president in U.S. history with my own government. Now, what he meant by that was that he was going to stop Vietnam. He was not going to allow them to have that war. He was going to pull out the CIA personnel out of Vietnam, which he also mentioned on the recordings that he discussed this with generals. There were plans in place to do that. And obviously, he wasn't going to follow this plan. And within 9 days of his assassination in Texas, he was going to have a free, democratic elected Cuba, one way or the other. He was going to resolve these. He was having secret talks with Castro, not through the intelligence community, but through people that he trusted. This was in the press corps and other people that he felt a rapport with, that he could go on one-on-one directly to these individuals and get this information across. He realized very quickly that the infighting with the CIA that he had wasn't going to do his orders. They were circumventing him on every turn. And I heard the recordings between President Kennedy and John McCone. Now, John McCone was the director of the CIA that they used to replace Mr. Dulles. Dulles was still operating out of Georgetown, still had very much a control of the Central Intelligence Agency. I've heard the recordings with Mr. Dulles trying to convince President Kennedy that he was in control of the agency. And what they had done prior to him coming into the office under the Eisenhower years, and all the mess that they had been involved with, and all the problems that it was causing for the United States. And President Kennedy said, we need to get a handle on this, and I want this to change, and we need to get direction on this, and we need to weed out these people that are causing such insurrection. And Mr. McCone was saying, well, listen, I do have control. I am going to get a handle on this, but I can tell you, my personal opinion is they did not have control of the agency. It was operating on its own will, its own merit, and President Kennedy was someone they looked at as someone who was coming into the office and would be gone. These were life people that had bigger and more important agendas to deal with than what President Kennedy had to say.
So when you basically protected these tapes and everything like that, now a great deal of time went by. You mentioned that you were imprisoned, that you were like on flights, planes, and all that. All that's in the book. I read the book, and it's fascinating, heartbreaking actually, to see the sufferings you went through.
Right.
So what has been the outcome? Where are the tapes today, first? I
still have possession of those tapes. I have a very important agreement with the Justice Department that gave me immunity for that, because they needed to debrief me, and I just would not capitulate. They even threatened my family. They sent agents to take away my grandparents' farm. They were trying to indict my father, who was a very good individual. I watched the Justice Department say, bring me the book of statutes right in front of you, so let's find what we can to indict this individual and bring him in, and if we have to get him on perjury or anything else that we can do, obstruction, we're going to ruin everybody's life that's associated with you one way or the other until you break. And so I had to capitulate on that capacity, and I had to go ahead and sign the agreement. But the agreement was very specific, and that was that I was going to give immunity for having possession of those recordings, and for the other information of national security that I'd been exposed to, and that I, myself, and my family were going to be protected not only from the United States government, but prosecution from anywhere else in the world that the United States would protect us upon this. And they signed that. That's how desperate they were to get my debriefs without having counsel, and they wanted to be able to ask any question and get the direct answer.
Can you tell people what a debrief is?
I had to go in and answer questions under threat of perjury under 50 years of imprisonment. That was the threat, the sword of Damocles hanging over my head, that I would tell the truth no matter what the questions were coming from the Justice Department and the intelligence community. So they asked me multiple questions that have to do with the evidence in the assassination of President Kennedy, what it meant, where these pieces of evidence were going to be used, in what capacity, who was involved in this, including President Reagan and the Russian government themselves, and then I had to answer all of those questions correctly based upon the investigation by the FBI.
How did they know that you were answering them correctly?
The FBI, and I assume possibly the CIA, who probably knew that I was in Russia and what was going on with all of that, probably investigated it and reported back that it seemed accurate what I had to say, or it did not. Obviously it did, because that got buttoned up at some point, and then I had to go in for sentencing in front of the federal sentencing judge. Now the sentencing judge, when I sat there, said, "You realize, barring any agreement you've made with the Justice Department, I can give you 50 years in prison right now." And that was one of the most scary moments in my life, because I realized once that hammer falls, and if I get 50 years, that's going to be a very unpleasant life. Not only that, but there's no recourse, not in the federal system. You can appeal that, but it's not going to matter. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to go anywhere. So
on top of this, you also had something to do with a watch.
The watch was a last-minute thing that was not accounted for by the Secret Service. Nobody knew that President Kennedy was wearing that day. All of his materials that he had on him, or his personal effects, were removed and taken and confiscated by the Lyndon Johnson's Secret Service. The reason for doing that was supposedly a radiation check to ensure that the president was not being attacked or radiated by foreign government and so forth. But the real purpose of that was that it would not deflect a bullet that'd be coming out of him, to make sure that the president's life was terminated absolutely in Dallas, and that a wounded president was not going to go back to Washington. The original idea was a false flag idea to shoot at the President Kennedy to get the American support for the invasion of Cuba. But there were other people involved, Lyndon Johnson being one of them. They wanted to make sure this thing was final, close the door on this permanently. And so President Kennedy's wristwatch that he was given by Jackie Kennedy would happen to be in her purse coming into left field, so he could set the time. His schedule was very tight, and they were running behind. So as he put this watch...
And other people didn't know about this extra watch.
Nobody knew he had it on his person. So as the bullet hit him from the front temple, on the low front temple, and exploded, which was a military round, this watch accumulated evidence in that explosive round, several different types of fractures that occurred from the sonic explosion. There was also munition evidence on that, and the back of the watch was also damaged, which shows directional coming in from the bullet that hit him. So this was whisked away very quickly out of Parkland Hospital. The head of Parkland Hospital security had two pieces of evidence in his pocket. One was a wristwatch, and one was a bullet that was found on a stretcher. They took the bullet, and they utilized that for the Warren Commission, the biggest lie that's ever been told in the last century to the American people. Was the foundation of the whole Warren Commission, and the watch was taken into Bobby Kennedy's investigation, his private investigation, and used to keep us out of war with Russia. And I should add that the Russians were so concerned about this, and so concerned about being blamed for this, and so concerned about going to war with the United States over this, they put such pressure on the Johnson administration that the Warren Commission became in existence not for the people of the United States. It's for the government of Russia to be absolved. That's the purpose of the Warren Commission. People need to understand what this is all about, and what this whole thing was being put in.
Lee Oswald alone did it all.
Lee Oswald was not the person in history that they claim him to be.
Of course not.
The information was coming back from Lee Oswald that was good, that was trusted by the Justice Department and by Bobby. It was recognized by Bobby Kennedy's office, and he was there for a purpose to keep doing. Bobby Kennedy was doing so desperately, and that's to protect the back of his brother, to infiltrate everything that he could, whether it be the CIA, whether it be the mafia, and wanted to know every plan that was in place to try to hurt or kill his brother. And that information came back, and as far as I know, Mr. Oswald was an American hero.
Absolutely. Of course, I'm prejudiced, but anyway, you're absolutely a breath of fresh air in the exposing of all of this, and I applaud you. What effect has this had on your family, speaking out?
It's been awful. My family has been terribly affected. My mother passed away from this. My other family that I do not discuss much about is kept. I've not seen them for decades, so that they could be safe, that their children could be safe, so they not get exposed to the dangers that I've unfortunately been placed in. And I've been approached, obviously, in writing this book. I've had somebody come out from Washington, give me some direction on this, and I've done the best I could to get the information out to the American public so that it even they knows it exists. I mean, I care about my children. I'm so blessed to be on the other side and survive this and have children now. And I care about my kids, and I care about this world and the world they're going to, come into their own with. And I care about your children and his children and everybody's families and where this world is going. I love the world. I love this place that we call home.
Yes.
And where are we going to go? We're all in the same boat together. We're all human. We're all connected. We're all connected. If we don't love each other and work together and to put down these petty differences that have been put and placed there for purpose, if we don't understand we're being manipulated, okay, which is exactly what we are. We've been manipulated for years and decades, brainwashed. Our processing has been so overridden with lies and false information that eventually you start believing it on automatic. You can't even decipher between what's real and what isn't any longer.
If you had a message, a message that you could give to your children to leave with them, what would that be?
Act with your heart. Speak from your heart. Love. Be open. You'll know when something's wrong and something's right. And when something's right, you can stand behind it and you can stand strong and stand firm and cover the ground that you're on, because that's where you're supposed to be. You were born into this world. The ground you cover is yours. It's your right to stand there and your right to be there. And people will always try to make you feel like it isn't. They'll always make you feel like you owe them something, or that you've done wrong in some capacity. We're all human beings. We make mistakes. But at the same time, we have purpose, and we're here for purpose, and we're here to love each other, to share with each other, care about each other. And do the right thing.
Yes.
And that's what you've done in your life, and that's what I'm trying to do in mine. And now it's up to everybody else how they want to decipher it and what they want to do about it.
Thank you. I guess. Yeah. Hello. All right. I feel kind of like Mel Gibson on the table in Braveheart. I'm not going to scream freedom. What I'm going to say is the bottom line of every communication has something to do with I love you. Even anger, there's missing love. So when you're in a conflict situation, if you have the discipline, look for the missing love and see if you can bring it. And please be active. Don't sit with your emotions. Be active. Make shit happen. We can do it. Lift a finger. We have 62 signatures on the Sirhan letter. It's a letter just to letting him know that he matters. If you haven't signed it, it's here, but we got to get moving, and the hangman's going to pull the lever, so I'm out of here. Thank you so much. Love you all.
Thank you, Peter.